Hello there and welcome back to another review. Today we're going to be looking at the 18 Bronzemen, which I'm going to be reviewing from this amazing box set released by Eureka Video called Cinematic Vengeance. It's basically works of Joseph Kyo. I've always said Joseph Kyo. I'm sorry if I'm pronounced that wrong. That's just how I've always said his name. But you know, I will hopefully be trying to get through all the movies in this box set. You know, some classics here. We've got Seven Grandmasters, 36 Deadly Styles, World of Drunken Master. Some great kung fu movies to get through from back in the day. And just, I'll be looking at 18 Bronzemen today and just going through that, what I think about it. And if you haven't got this already and you're a kung fu movie guy or girl, please pick this up because it's awesome. It's something I never expected to see. Definitely that come out of the blue when Eureka announced it. I was like, what, Joseph Kyo box set? You know, damn. And I just had to pick it up. But 18 Bronzemen, made back in 1976 and starring Wong, who many of you will remember, obviously, from John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China. That's where you'll be like, yes, it's that guy. So that's where you probably remember him. And it also stars Peng, who was in films such as Touch of Zen by King Hu. And like I mentioned, I will try and get through all the movies here. I'm just doing sort of one by one. Seven Grandmasters was the one I had on video back in the day, and a lot of them, quite a handful in here, I'd never actually seen before. So it's going to be fun. Hopefully get through all the movies for you. The film is in many ways, it's a sort of a 36 Chambers of Shaolin type of movie. The film is very much sort of a training movie. It's not a question, you know, like in the stereotypical kung fu movie, you know, you meet this guy, doesn't know any kung fu or knows some, then an injustice happens or his master gets murdered or something happens, then we have the sort of the training sequence in like sort of near the end of the movie. Here, like with 36 Chambers of Shaolin, it's the whole film itself is very much a training movie. There's a lot of comparisons you could make with obviously the classic Lu Xiaolong, sort of 36 Chambers film, but here it's very, you can look at it, you could even compare the two on so many different levels, but I won't necessarily compare it to 36 Chambers direct because it's a bit unfair to do that, because whereas the 36 Chambers is regarded so highly, I think 18 Bronzemen does sort of stand on its own and its own merit. I think it does have a lot going for it in its own individual, you know, the movie that it is. You know, the typical thing where a student or pupil must undertake a certain set of tasks or obstacles in order to pass Shaolin and learn what it truly means to become a kung fu master, and the teachings that Shaolin Temple offered. Very much in this, like I mentioned, you know, the same vein as 36 Chamber. In this film, of course, there is the idea of 18 Bronzemen. Like, this is the novelty as the film. This is the gimmick. This is what Joseph Kyo went for with this movie. So that's the novelty. That's the idea of the film, because it's like the, you know, when the training happens, the 18 Bronzemen are obviously the standout film, which we, you know, when we get to that scene, in, you know, some people in bronze body paint basically is what you're getting here. It's just people, kung fu guys dressed up in bronze body paint and bronze sort of bodysuits fighting, you know, they're fighting our heroes in such tests in order to, you know, test their skills. Much in the same vein as well as sort of the Shaolin Wooden Men, starring Jackie Chan, sort of, you know, just where like a corridor of these, like, you know, it's people in suits basically, but they're making out sort of they're mechanical and things like that. So this is what I liked about this movie, although not as classic as I mentioned earlier as 36 Chamber, you know, Gordon Liu. There's a lot of emphasis on training here and the time spent in the temple. You know, it's good fun. It's good fun stuff, and I haven't. I've only seen a handful of like old school Carter Wong movies. So you know, to see this one, it's also got the Return of the 18 Bronzemen in the box set as well. So you know, it's really good to see, sort of, you know, the more obscure kung fu movies getting released. And that's why, like I mentioned, you know, I never thought something like this would be released. I never ever thought you'd get a box set of Joseph Kyo ever, because everybody, like, you get the obvious old school kung fu movie releases like your Snake and the Eagle's Shadows and your Drunken Masters, and you get all them, the obvious classic ones, but it's nice to see like the more obscure ones actually getting the, you know, a release and the treatment they deserve, and high def treatment. So our hero Tien Peng, his family wiped out, and he's sent to Shaolin to seek vengeance and learn his skills. The film has a lot to do with destiny, and sometimes we don't have a choice in the path that we take with what happens, and sometimes our heritage and our lineage is what helps dictate our future and what happens. Sometimes we don't have a choice with these things that happen, and though the film, it does have that "you killed my family, I must get revenge" thing about it. There is that element there, as there always usually is in a kung fu movie. There's a lot more going on here than first meets the eye. So all about the Qing government trying to find out and kill any Ming supporters, basically. As mentioned, his family get wiped out, and he goes on the run with the aid of a family friend who teaches him sort of basically just the basic fundamentals of Kung Fu. This is all done relatively quickly. They don't draw this out necessarily. This is all done sort of just quick, getting on with the narrative, saying like he was born weak, but with the proper training he will be much stronger, and start using a lot of medical herbs and weights on the kid. Then they realise the only safe place to him to go, where he'll be safe and not hunted down, is the Shaolin Temple. So it's basically just like the typical, if you support this, then you're wrong, we're going to kill you. They want to hide him, they send him to the Shaolin Temple, So the kid playing him in his early years is really, if you watch the film like properly, like I do, if you watch it, the kid playing the younger him, he's a really good actor. I've no idea what his name is, but the kid who plays the younger version is, I think the kid in this is great, who plays the younger version of him. Great charisma. And like I said, I just wonder who he is. And it's here we also introduced to Carter Wong's character, who is, also training at the temple. However, our lead is, he's finding it hard. Tien Peng is finding it hard and lagging behind in all his training. He's not as skilled. I mean, Carter Wong is, like every obstacle, he sort of conquers quite easily. Tien Peng finds it really hard. It's not like, it's a lot of kung fu movies, they'll do something once, fail, and then they'll get it right. He fails a lot in this. He really is finding it a struggle. It's not as simple and as straightforward as he thought it was going to be. At one point he gets asked why he has not shaved his head, and because the abbot says he has no need to, because he's destined for bigger things. Even the 36 chambers themselves get a mention in this movie, because of the legends and the mythos with the Shaolin Temple, and the 36 chambers does get a mention. We have a lot of training sequences, as there was always going to be with this type of film, such as sitting under a large bell as it is chiming to improve and maintain concentration. That's one of the training exercises they use in this movie. Or Carter going down this wall of spikes that is sort of closing in on him from both sides. It's worth mentioning that a lot of the some of the training, it's very much like sort of set up like an Indiana Jones thing. Like if you put your foot on the wrong tile, then a wall will close in on you with spikes and God knows what. It's very much like sort of Temple of Doom or the opening to Raiders of the Lost Ark. So you sort of never know what next challenge is coming when you're going down one of these hallways in the Shaolin Temple. So hitting a large bell with hands so that it chimes. I love how there's a lot of, like I mentioned, a lot of training in this film. It's you don't need, it's not necessarily just kung fu fight. Bronzemen. It's some people, like if you're not a kung fu person, you probably will watch this and just find it silly. And these guys just dressed in bronze body paint or bronze bodysuit, you might find it fun, but I just think it was I think it's a good kung fu movie. I think it's a worthy kung fu movie. I mean, these suits the guys wear, the bronze bodysuits, they must have been very restrictive, especially when performing some of the moves, because it's not like they can necessarily see quite easy, and they look like they can't turn all that well either. So compared to like some of the guys that are just wearing body paint, the guys that are in these sort of suits, I'd imagine it probably got very hot and God knows what under there, and just, like I say, quite restrictive. But there's some cool sequences here, like Carter taking on some monks with swords. There's some good stuff, some good kung fu happening in this movie. Whilst they're reading and studying one day, they find the 18 Luhan secret fist manual. which is the highest level of Shaolin, basically. So they're sort of studying, reading up. They discover this manual. The Emperor sends a spy to steal it, and Carter kills him, even though they said they needed him alive. And they just randomly found this manual in amongst the library of the temple when they're reading. So, so this guy comes in to pinch it. Carter kills him. It's like, oh, yeah, but we could have questioned him. We needed him alive. And that's really sort of all regarding plot, all that mainly has sort of happened up to this point. Up to this point, it's been, like I mentioned earlier, just a lot of training, a lot of sequences with the Bronzemen, and which makes it good fun. So Long takes on the Bronzemen again, and in certain scenes it looks like someone, in certain instances it looks like something from like sort of some of the old Doctor Who TV shows made back in the day. Then they have to like lift at one point this like 1,000-pound gate, and then they have this cauldron which they have to move with sort of their arms, which sort of imprints sort of this like dragon markings along them, so to prove they've actually passed the test. They're both passed, and they, like Carter, Wong and Tien, they're told to seek justice and help those in need when they leave the temple. So they do, you get through, and sometimes like that could be, necessarily the end of the movie, but it keeps going, because obviously there needs to be a resolution with like sort of why he joined the temple and his pursuers and things like that. So Long finds out his grandfather died while he was in temple, and would have not his granddad, sorry, his grandmother. She died while he was in the temple, and he would have seen her. He didn't get time to see it, but he would have done if he'd have passed the test earlier, if he'd have got out sooner than what he did. If he'd have passed first time, because they'll say he fails, routinely. He gets handed items from his father, like from his uncle, such as a sword, a seal, and the classic, you got to have a letter written in blood. You must always, typical keepsakes from your family, your sword and your letter written in blood. It has to be written in blood. I mean, who needs, ink nowadays? Just use blood. It's a kung fu movie. It's got to use blood. Then his journey begins, and the film just sort of starts. Not again, but like his training's complete. He's out the temple. He's grown up. He's learned all this. It'd have been so boring if they made the character just pass every test so easily. There would have been no struggle there. There'd have been no sort of turmoil. It's much better that they do let him fail. That they do let him. All these obstacles he faces, he doesn't do them easily, but so when he gets out, the redemption of being out the temple and having passed all these tests is a bit more rewarding, So he meets this woman who's, in all these films, who's pretending to be a man, and who has the other side of this seal that he got from his uncle, and who apparently, according to this seal, that person is going to be his future wife. So we got sort of a love interest quite quickly. Then one of his brothers, who also gets out, randomly finds them. Like the Carter, Wong, Tien, and this guy were sort of three that were sort of coming up together. He gets out after them. He randomly just tracks them down and finds them, and says he has come to help her kill Chu Ying, who's sort of the evil guy. Though they are very sort of secretive at first, like they're not sure why, they don't want to let him in, because it's like not sure, because he seems a bit too eager. So one stormy night, Long gets attacked and turns about. It's like this guy who just got out. I think he's the sixth. They refer to him as sixth brother. He gets out and he tries to use these like poison darts on him. So you think, hang on, what's going on here? Like, why you turn? He just gets attacked. Uses like these poison darts on him. They overpower him and don't kill him, even though he tried to kill them. So it's a bit sort of, I'm thinking, just kill the bastard. Like he tried to assassinate you, but and you're meant to be my buddy, So then what, you repay, meant to be helping me out, and you're trying to shoot me with a poison dart. It's like, yeah, some friend you are. So yeah, he feels his shame. He gets caught out. He couldn't kill him, and then sort of in his shame and remorse, he gives him the antidote so he can sort of heal himself from the poison dart. And then so his father, basically, it turns out his dad is the one that he must kill. And it's the thing of like, it's that whole element of like, sometimes you don't have a choice, like with the whole sort of destiny and what's happened in front of you. You just sometimes don't have a choice with what circumstances and what family you're born into. They go to confront the general, who uses like doppelgangers, and they use 18 fists, which, as we mentioned, was sort of the highest level, even though I thought the general knew it, as his son stole the manual and gave it to him at one point. So I'm not, it's said that he stole the manual, but they use 18 fists, so I'm not quite sure if having the manual paid off. I don't know how that works, but anyway, he uses like these doppelgangers, so there's a lot of different versions of him, like a lot of different people pretending to be him. So they defeat him. Carter ends up getting stabbed, and his father was a general. It turns out Carter Wong's father was a general who failed to protect Long's dad back before they joined the temple. So he was his son, and he was sent to protect our lead as well. So you got two dads, and like the one son is sent to help and protect the other one. Idea of fate playing a part in our lives, and like decisions already being made for us before we're even grown up or mature enough to make our own. The idea that it's already decided for us what we're going to do and the path we're going to lead. But without getting too deep about the 18 Bronzemen, it is a fun film. It just turns out the guy who comes out the temple after, he's a traitor, and his dad was sort of the evil guy, and he's his son. He doesn't have a choice. He's got to do it because that's what his dad wants. And it's a question that all three of these people, their fate, like I mentioned earlier, was already decided before they even had chance to, like I mentioned, just live their own life. Their fathers and their parentage already decided, you're going to kill that guy for me. You're going to protect that person for me. And that's a very interesting thing, and I think that's a great dynamic which makes the film quite, really quite cool and quite different from other kung fu movies. Aside from that, though, if regardless of the plot, just watch it for the training sequences alone, because there's some really fun training in this. As I say, it's not quite as classic and as memorable as 36 Chambers, or definitely not as popular by a long way. But it's still worth checking out. It is still very much a kung fu movie that I think everyone should see. It's while not necessarily a 5-star kung fu movie, it's still an enjoyable one for sure. But I will try and get through all the movies in this box set. But we'll start with 18 Bronzemen, and next I'll probably tackle Return of the 18 Bronzemen. But if you've seen this movie, if you've seen it, or if it's a kung fu movie that's in your collection, or you've seen it back in the day, let me know, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But that's my take on 18 Bronzemen. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you soon.